Utah came to Provo to die. And it was remarkable, the performance that we saw out of BYU as we led up to this game. I think we all knew it would be a close game. But 26-17? Did anybody predict that? Because we certainly did not. Did anybody predict that this Utah offensive line would get absolutely feasted on up front? Did anybody predict that Jaren Hall would come out and throw 3 scores and just dominate Utah, consistently break their spirit by running the ball? I don't think anybody saw this game playing out the way it did. And Jake, frankly, it's shocking. It is shocking how bad Utah was at times.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that they were not, however you want to say it, not prepared or not ready to play or, not able to handle Jaren and his legs. And I think, that really to me was where the game sort of changed is BYU no longer has a guy standing back there who's a statue, who is just, going to hang out in the pocket, and BYU's huge defensive line can come and get him. That's no longer the case. And I think that, when you have, Jaren running wheel routes up the sideline and Jaren running up the sideline just out of the pocket with the football for 25 yards, I mean, that's crushing to your defense. I mean, that's not, you can't, it's really difficult to protect against that. So I just think overall, Jaren played a hell of a game, and I think that BYU, and honestly, more credit to Kalani, they were prepared. I honestly felt like watching that game that Kalani Sitake was ready to go and had a pretty good feel for what Utah was going to bring to the table. And I think that's why Jaren Hall was so prepared on the running side of his game, because he knew, okay, there's definitely going to be times where pressure comes. There's definitely going to be times where I'm going to have to run, and I just need to be opportunistic with that and not make silly mistakes, not take the big hit, not put the football on the ground, not throw a silly interception if I'm throwing to avoid the blitz. So to me, I just felt like Kalani Sitake and that coaching staff had Jaren Hall ready to go, and everybody else did their job. I mean, that's as simple as it is. Literally, if your quarterback is not flustered when the pressure comes, and everybody else, your wide receivers, your tight ends, your offensive line, if they all just do their job, you're going to have success. And so to me, yes, it was shocking that this game was 26-17. I mean, that was really surprising to me. And I think, in the first half, it was kind of like, okay, BYU's playing well. This was kind of expected, though. You're in Provo. You're on the road.
Right.
You knew you were going to get punched in the face at the beginning of the game. Like, you knew that was going to happen. But then you start getting in the third quarter, and you're like, dude, what are we doing here? Is Utah really about to lose this game?
Well, and I think one of the things that really comes out, and one of the things that really showed out, was that BYU was more emotional. They were more into it. They certainly were more, it seemed, prepared. You watched a Utah team in it, and it's shocking. Honest to goodness, it's something I can't say I've seen very many times, if ever, in Kyle Whittingham's tenure, where the Utes just no-showed for long swaths of this game. There was no heart, there was no drive, there was no nothing, no life, no excitement. It was shocking to see that the Utah Utes simply did not show up in what was arguably the biggest game of their season. And now they've lost that game. You're not going to play it for 2 more years. I think there is so much more on the line than just, the 9-game winning streak coming to an end. You're looking at BYU now for the next 2 years having momentum, because the next time they play this game, BYU is going to be in the Big 12. The next time they play this game, BYU is going to be far more talented. The next time they play this game, you could make the argument that it could be with bowl implications, with national play, with national championship, college football playoff implications. The next time BYU and Utah play, the stakes are going to be far higher. And it just makes me wonder, why are we not playing this game every year? That, to me, is one of the biggest questions. I mean, do you agree this game should be played every year?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really unfortunate, especially locally in Salt Lake, where, you're going to go 2 years without playing this game. It's amazing to me because I think now, you're right. Like, I think BYU getting into the Big 12, which happened Friday in case you were living under a rock, but BYU getting into the Big 12, to me signals, recruiting's about to go up. The program's about to grow. Like, everything's moving in the right direction for BYU. And I kind of agree. We were watching that game, together, and you were like, man, like, Utah is playing indifferent football. And I feel like that's a great way to describe it. You're just kind of rolling out onto the field, going through the motions, and hoping for a good result. And that's never going to get you any kind of performance that's close to a win on the road in Provo. Like, that's not going to happen. So to me, I just feel like, once again, if you go back and you listen to our shows the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about this whole thing where the Pac-12 is really struggling, where, if you look at it from a conference perspective, they're struggling, or if you look at it from an individual program perspective, they're struggling. And I felt like in Provo, for Utah, that was on like full display. You had a team that just wasn't locked in and ready, which is really surprising. So yeah, to me, is it a shame that we don't get to see this game every single year? Yeah, it is a shame. Is it for Utah? Is it a luxury? Yeah, it is, because next time you better come ready to play. Now, next time it's going to be in Utah. Obviously, it's going to be at Rice Eccles, but at the end of the day, I just think this conversation is less about what Utah didn't do and more about what BYU did. Because I think BYU came ready to play, they executed their game plan, and that got them the win. And now they're set up to have another great season, coming off a season where a lot of haters said, oh, well, 11-1 or 10-1 or whatever it was, you did that on a soft-ass schedule. Well, I got news for you. They're 2-0 against the Pac-12. So,
well, and I think the thing that really stood out here was, and again, here's something we haven't been able to say for the last decade, BYU won this game on the line. BYU won this game with the defensive line. They dominated Utah's offensive line. And I think BYU got solid offensive line play, good enough. It was not good offensive line play. Let's not couch this. BYU's got work to do on the offensive line. But BYU got enough quality play up front from their offensive line to allow Jaren Hall to operate, to give him the time to throw the football and let some routes develop. I mean, there's so many stories in this game that the Nakua brothers were actually effective, because I didn't think you got a great performance out of Rex at tight end. I thought you needed those kind of performances out of the Nakua brothers, and you got it. Now, the stupid penalties where you took your helmets off, that's just not good enough. And I'm sure Kalani will address that. But my point is, I think you now have a legitimate argument to be made that while they're certainly not as talented as Utah, BYU right now today is a better football team than the Utah Utes. And again, I don't think we've ever been able to say that during Kyle Whittingham's tenure up on the hill, Jake.
No, I think it almost sounds outlandish to say, doesn't it? Like BYU right now has a better football team than Utah does. It's like I almost have trouble saying it because it's been so long, but I think there's no way to get away from it at this point. Like they just beat you, right? They're 2-0. They right now have more momentum. Right now they're in the AP top 25, and you're not close. And I just think overall they have more momentum. And again, I think we just have to be mindful, when we're talking about these things that BYU's successes aren't necessarily, Utah being some horrible program.
No.
I just think that this particular year, Utah, for whatever reason, I'm not going to say they weren't prepared, but it just felt like they just were not up to the challenge. It just kind of felt like the spirit, like the fight, the passion was not within them on that night. And I feel like that really more than anything is why BYU won the game.
Well, and I also think that there's something to be said for Kalani Sitake here. I mean, and it probably goes without saying, this guy's a pretty good football coach. And we've been talking about this for years on this show. I am a huge believer in Kalani's spirit. I'm a huge believer in his energy and his vibe. I think that wins you football games. His preparation, you're not going to, if you're a football coach and a football coaching staff that doesn't prepare their teams, you're not going to win games like this. That to me is rudimentary. But when your kids are emotionally connected, when they're fired up, when they understand what's on the line. One of the great stories, that I've been party to over the last several years was told by Kyle Gunther about the fact that Urban Meyer used to put BYU logos on the floor and in the urinals. And it wasn't just on game week. It was all the time because you were always walking on BYU. You were always making sure that in their minds that the Utah Utes understood that BYU was beneath them, that Utah's a better team, and there was no question about that. I don't think you can say that anymore. And I think when you are this BYU football team, and I think when you saw Kalani just absolutely exercise his demons at the end of that game on the sideline, you begin to understand how much is actually on the line in this rivalry. You begin to understand how much effort and energy and soul was put into BYU's preparation over the last 3 years, especially to win this very game. I mean, I think it speaks volumes about the kind of coach and the kind of staff that Kalani Sitake has built in Provo, and I don't think that we can say it too loudly. Kalani Sitake is underappreciated and undervalued as a football coach in this country. I don't think there's any doubt that any Ute fan loves Kalani. Certainly at BYU, he is iconic now. But you look at Kalani Sitake nationally, he absolutely is underappreciated. He's undervalued. He is not a name that most fans across the country know yet. Mm-hmm. Kalani Sitake and BYU football are arguably in as good as any position as they have ever been in the history of this program to be more talented and more ready to compete for a college football playoff spot. And whether you want to call it the BCS before that or the open seasons before that, I don't know that BYU has ever been more correctly positioned to compete at the top of college football.
Yeah, and I want to play this piece of Kalani sound because I think it kind of exemplifies exactly what you're talking about. This is Kalani post-game in the locker room just talking to his team, and I want you to specifically listen for just like how emotional it is because I think this is really what won them the football game.
Great job, by the way. Love the game. Love the way that you guys fought. Okay? Keep serving others. Keep thinking of others. Good things will happen to you. I promise you. Okay? I'm so proud of you guys. I'm so proud of you guys. I'm trying not to cry. Love you guys, man. Love you. I'm speaking for all our coaches and our coaching staff. Hey, if you love God, you love your family, say it with me.
It's unbelievable.
It's amazing.
I mean, the guy just...
He gets it.
I mean, his soul leaked out in front of us. I mean, it was amazing. The importance of this game cannot be overstated for BYU. And I think one of the other questions you have to ask is, what's the impact of this loss on Utah? You're clearly weighting BYU as a P5 team. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no doubt about that nationally BYU gets respect. How much does this impact BYU versus Utah? I think for Utah, you're going into you're going into your last week of preparation before you play league games. This is a must-win against San Diego State. There's no doubt about that. You're on the road. There's great Mexican food around. You absolutely have to win this game.
Cafe Coyote.
Yeah, you've absolutely got to win this game against San Diego State. But I also think questions have to be asked about how bad this offensive line is. Because Utah's a good football team, and this is something else I think that has to be stated. Utah's a very good football team, but their offensive line is a huge problem. Charlie Brewer took shots that it's stunning.
Yeah.
It's stunning that a BYU defensive line that's good, not great, was routinely in the backfield against Utah the other night. That's shocking. I mean, I don't think anybody could have predicted that. And I think Utah really has to make adjustments in their core, fundamental adjustments. This offensive line has to get better. And the other question is, with all due respect to Jay Hill at Weber, I don't think you can play that game anymore. I don't think that can be your opening game on the schedule anymore because it's soft.
Yeah.
And BYU came out against Arizona. I know it's Arizona. Sweaty Sean is fired. They suck. Arizona is exponentially more talented than Weber. Arizona helped BYU get ready for Utah. Weber did not help Utah get ready for BYU.
Yeah.
And I think it going into, whatever this era of change is going to be in college football, you now have to find a way to schedule up. You have to schedule the way that BYU schedules, frankly. You have to play teams like Arizona, Utah, and Arizona State 3 right out of the gate. Now, the advantage is, clearly, BYU's an independent at this point, and they're able to schedule whoever the hell they want. But, man, come on. You had Oregon, going to Ohio State.
Man.
You had Washington going to Michigan. You played Weber. Right? I mean, BYU is a legitimate opponent. BYU is now, not arguably, BYU right here today on September 13th, 2021, is a better football team than the Utah Utes.
Yeah.
And how did we get here? Well, we got here because, to me, it looks like Utah overlooked BYU. That's what it feels like to me. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, Jake, but I just feel like you can't play that Weber game anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like even if obviously, yes, they won the Weber game, but it's kind of like one of those games where it's like how you won the game. I mean, they didn't exactly dominate Weber, and I felt like, your best point there is it didn't prepare them for BYU, who I definitely agree nationally is respected as a P5 program, even though they're an independent. And I think that, you start to look at the sort of structure of your season and how the season's going to go, and you look at Utah's schedule and you're like, all right, we're going to open with Weber like we always do. Okay, that's going to be a win. But that's the biggest problem, isn't it? Because you don't want to be opening with games that are just assumed wins. That, to me, is the issue. You got to play teams that are going to push you. You got to play teams that are just as good as you are. I mean, that's why I say, with all due respect, like last week when we were talking about, Utah beat Weber. Cool, dude. You didn't dominate Weber. It wasn't like you put on some offensive display against Weber, and that's why I say the Weber game, yes, it was a win, but it hurt Utah because you didn't do what you were supposed to do against Weber. We weren't supposed to win the game. You were always going to win the game. You were supposed to dominate that program. You were supposed to dominate that team.
And I think the other thing you have to ask is, how did Tyler Algier put up 100 yards rushing against the Utah Utes?
Yeah, I think the reason that happened is because Jaren Hall is mobile. I think Jaren Hall being able to run all over the field and the Utah Utes defense having to respect that really allowed Kalani and that staff to get creative with their play calling and in terms of when we're going to run the ball. Hey, we're not going to run the ball on first down. We're gonna pass on first down. We're gonna then read option on second down, and if it's 3rd and 1, then we'll hammer it with Algier. They were just getting super creative with it.
Well, and Jaren, and I can look it up, I think had 92 yards, 8 carries, 92 yards. I mean, you gave Tyler Algier 4 yards a carry.
Yeah.
I mean, you got beat up front. It's shocking. The Utah Utes got beat by BYU because BYU controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides.
I'm sitting here like, dude, are we really saying this right now? Like, are we really saying that BYU's offensive line and defensive line were better than the Utes' offensive and defensive line?
And are you telling me that you're going to win a game if Britton Covey has 1 catch for 6 yards?
Another issue. That's a great point.
How?
Yeah, I don't know.
It is some of the numbers that Brant Keithy only has 3 for 36. Now he had the touchdown. I get that, but how do Kincaid and Keithy have 4 catches combined?
Yeah,
that's shocking to me. 4 catches for about 70 yards is shocking.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear why that happened. I mean, I think that the game plan offensively, to me, was not good enough. Here's the thing. You can scheme to accommodate for a crappy offensive line.
Yes,
and I felt like Utah didn't do that. I felt like Utah just assumed that the offensive line was going to be good, that they were going to be able to run the ball for 4 or 5 yards a pop, and then they were going to run play action off of that. And then that's when the Keithys of the world and the Britton Coveys of the world were going to get involved. And that never happened. You can't get those guys involved if BYU is only bringing 4 and has plenty of guys in coverage. That's not going to work.
No, and it is, one of the things I also think really stands out is that I wonder do you have explosiveness outside if you're Utah? And my feeling is you do not. You are not, if you look at the mix and the combination of guys that really impacted your game, I mean, I think Micah Bernard was your best player.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. He both ran and caught the football very well. There's no doubt he's your number 1 now. But I think you lack explosiveness in the passing game. And, I mean, you have a guy like Charlie Brewer that can throw the football. you're not protecting him, and you're not giving him weapons to make explosive plays. And in this league, you better get the football down the field. You got beat by a BYU defense who admittedly plays prevent 9 out of 10 snaps.
Yeah.
And what happened? They kept everything in front of them, and they held you down. And to me, Utah's got to get more explosive. I don't know how you do that on the fly. I really don't. But you've got to find a way to drive the football down the field through the air. You win the games in this league. You win this league, the Pac-12, through the air. You beat teams by making big plays through the air. Well, that's college football these days.
Well, look at what Oregon did at Ohio State. I mean, I first of all, kudos to Oregon. I was shocked by that performance. I mean, really impressed. Especially having a couple of defensive studs out for Oregon. But, what I'm getting to here is you look at what they did with Verdell in that game, their running back. Verdell is a guy who is a thick running back for sure. You would think based on just looking at him, all right, cool, we're going to hand this ball off and he's going to be a bowling ball in the A gap. But what ends up happening in that game, and I think this is something that Utah could really learn from, is, hey, send him out on a little 7 to 10 yard post route and scheme to get that portion of the field open for him. Yes, he's a running back, but if you can hit your back like that over the middle of the field, that's going to open up a ton of stuff for you. And so I just feel like my point is that I felt like Utah was very caveman in the way they went about this game. I felt like there was no creativity, and I just felt like they just got outclassed. And I think at the end of the day, we can sit here and say Utah didn't do a bunch of stuff, right? Utah didn't do this, they didn't do that, like whatever. At the end of the day, all I'm saying is that BYU did their damn job. They went out and they won a game that they really needed to win. And
they didn't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing that you look at. Oregon didn't turn the ball over. You look at BYU didn't turn the ball over. There's too much big play talent in college football to turn the ball over. And the other thing that I think has to be talked about, and we saw this in the NFL yesterday too to a certain level, you've got to take the points early in games.
Yeah.
And this going for it on fourth down stuff, you got to stop doing that if you're Kalani. Kick the field goal. You have an extraordinary field goal kicker. Kick the field goal. Take the points. Win the game by 10 instead of 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So BYU is not perfect. I think there are a ton of issues on the Utah side of the ball. So let's get some of your comments in here. I see everybody in here talking about BYU and Utah. David Floyd says, great win by BYU, signed Texas Tech fan. David, appreciate you being here. Ramiro says, morning, guys. Hey, how are you, Ramiro? Tanner Plummer. Go Cougars and fly, Eagles, fly. Whatever. I'll tell you what, though. I think the Eagles have a quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
And you've had one for over a year.
He's been sitting there waiting for you.
Yep. Gabe Lovely says, Blue Wave is real. They changed the state's name to BYU Utah.
Okay.
Have they? Yeah,
okay.
They should. Chris Carnes says, fire Nagy. That's coming. Please don't get me started. Chris?
It's so bad.
Don't. Not yet. Sorry about the Bears. Screw you, Tanner. Jeremy Bolton says, good morning. Man, what a weekend for BYU. Hells to the yeah. I mean, it truly was everything that you wanted.
I mean, you were saying this might have been like one of the best, like the best week ever.
This is arguably the best week in the history of BYU football. I mean, you needed this. This had to happen.
Yeah.
Had to happen.
Yep.
I mean, the control that BYU now exerts in this state. Mm-hmm. Your ability to recruit, hey, we're in the Big 12, come play with us. Hey, by the way, we're going to be in the Big 12 in 2 years, and by the time that you're a sophomore and you're really ready to go and you're a primetime player, you'll be on national TV every week against big-time opponents.
Yep.
Guaranteed. You're gonna help BYU win its first national championship since 1984. Come play with us in Provo.
Yep.
That's a powerful message. And there's no corner of this state that isn't aware that A, you're a Big 12 team, and B, you beat Utah this week. There's not a high school football player or a JUCO transfer that doesn't know that happened.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. James Nelson says Sataki is closing the talent gap. Well, this is an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Because, again, I will tell you, Utah is more talented than BYU. There's no question about that. But it's close. It's close. And, defensively, it's shocking how much BYU got after that ass. Like, that defensive line, oh, man.
Yeah.
Like, we knew the linebackers would be good. They made plays in the secondary. I mean, the talent, the 2, 3, and 4s showed out. The explosiveness that Utah lacked, BYU has it, and the Nakua brothers outside. You've got, Gunnar Romney playing this week was an incredibly good sign. You see all of this playing out for BYU now. It's close. It's really close.
Well, and I think, the thing that has to be said if we're talking about talent is right here today, based on what I saw over the weekend, Jaren Hall is a more versatile player than Charlie Brewer is. Charlie Brewer is a hell of a quarterback, no doubt about it. Big
and
arm,
he's mobile too.
But he's not, to me, yes, he's mobile. There's a difference between being a statue back there and being able to roll out and run around and make some plays. Jaren Hall is straight up running down the sideline, burning you. To me, that's special. To me, again, you have to be careful with how much you let him run, obviously, because of the injury concern. That's really what's held him back in his career. But, the way they let him run in that game is what they need to be doing every single week because you go from a situation where, all right, we just got a guy back there who can kind of roll out and can kind of avoid some pressure to a guy that now can run for 10 or 15 yards easily and can break the spirit of that defense that's been holding you down the whole game. And to me, that really was some of the runs he had, those were turning points in this game. Those were huge moments where you're like, dude, he had nowhere to go with the football, and they still got the first down. That's what I'm saying. Utah secondary did not play horribly. They did not. Jaren Hall was just a little bit better. So that's why I say when we talk about talent gaps and who's got more where, yeah, Utah's a better defense, sure. But I'm telling you right now, BYU's got the better quarterback right here today. So it just that's just where it falls. Well,
and I think the one of the things that we have to talk about is why you're not playing this game every year. And I think it revolves around Max Hall. This Max Hall story, and if you don't know the story, I'd be shocked. So Max Hall is, I think, one of the central figures in the history of the BYU-Utah rivalry. There's no doubt. And I think it started in 2009 when Max Hall said this.
I don't like Utah. In fact, I hate them. I hate everything about them. I hate their program. I hate their fans. I hate everything. So it felt really good to send those guys home. They didn't deserve it. It was our time, and it was our time to win. We deserved it. We played as hard as we could tonight. I think the whole university and their fans and the organization is classless. I think, they threw beer on my family and stuff last year and did a whole bunch of nasty things, and I don't respect them.
Bruh.
Okay, now.
Tell us how you really feel.
Max shouldn't have said that. I don't think he would deny that. But Max Hall went on to find trouble in his life. Max Hall battles addiction. I think it is on the record very publicly about his arrests or his arrest at the Best Buy. And that's not something to joke about, though. Mocking Max Hall for addiction is not a joke. It's not a joking matter, and it's something that's got to stop. You want to joke with Max Hall about, his NFL career or, whatever you want to point to. Hey, knock yourself out. Mocking Max Hall for addiction is just, it shows you're not very bright. It shows that you have no heart and no soul. Mm-hmm. And in this country and in this state of Utah, where we fight addiction every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day in this state. It is nasty. There are people dying. It is destroying families. To joke about addiction on any level is not a joke. It's not funny. It doesn't make you cool. It doesn't make you hip. But one of the indelible moments from this weekend is Max Hall going up into the stands and taking that photo with the fan wearing the shirt. I don't remember what it said. Max Hall hates me or whatever. The Utah fan that was wearing that shirt, Max Hall went up to him, stood up with him, and they took a picture together. Mm-hmm. It's over. It's over. Let it go. Right? It just needs to end. I don't care if Max Hall's mom had beer poured on her or not. we can joke about that. We're not going to joke about his addiction. It's so short-sighted.
Yeah, it's classless. It just is.
I
there's
just
no place for
can't.
it.
I just can't say it enough. It's not something to joke about. In all seriousness, this is why we don't play the rivalry every year, because the vitriol, the anger, the frustration.
But where do you draw the line between a great rivalry and between maybe going a step too far? Like, I feel like we can look around sports, and obviously there's plenty of examples I'm sure we could come up with people going too far. But like, I do definitely 100% agree that the addiction thing is definitely not something to be
That's
joking
too far.
about, right? Like, that's way too far in my opinion. But I think pretty much anything else is on the table, And so to me, yeah, that was great to see that Max is in a place in his life where he's cool with that. He's accepted that. He's at peace with things. Like, that's great to see. But I just think that it to me, it is asking too much to expect any fan base not to pick on issues like that. I think that every fan base has, maybe not full of people, but definitely has people that are always going to bring that stuff up. And I just think that it's never going to die. And that's the thing. He's never going to live it down. Any of it.
Yeah. Jeremy Bolton says, man, Lavelle Edwards Stadium was incredible. Place was so loud. How about those video boards? My God. Yes, it was packed. Hope you got vaccinated. It was an incredible night of football. It really was. And you know what? I think it was an incredible Saturday in football. Mark Miansky says, great job on the USC prediction. Well, I didn't really predict that USC would beat Stanford. I said, watch out, Stanford can beat you. We'll talk a lot of Pac-12 tomorrow, frankly. Those results,
Don't get me started
if you're
on
Utah,
USC.
Washington, Oregon saved your ass this weekend in the Pac-12. I don't even know how you explain what happened.
Nothing short of impressive.
Yeah, you're a two-team league at this point. You're Oregon and UCLA. Up until what I saw this week in Provo, I thought Utah was one of the best teams in the country. They're going to have to re-earn that, because I don't know that I see that anymore. Daryl Adams says Zach needed an O-line as well. Part of the reason Utah lost was choosing an easy game one. Agree with that. Kalani should have got a flag for that dancing. Hey, sure, throw a flag.
No cop, no
do
stop.
It. Spencer Morgan says San Diego State is a losable game. Look what they did to Arizona.
Hell yeah,
San Diego State's always a good team. They're always going to play
And
hard.
by the way, small detail, we're actually going to get to watch that game. I don't know if anybody realizes that.
No, this is a Pac-12 team. They don't play on national TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow.
Well, they were in ESPN because BYU.
BYU has a $6 million contract every year.
No kidding, right? How does San Diego State have more national TV access?
CBS.
No, stop. No, I'm not doing it. Spencer Morgan says Utah's old line was terrible again. Where's the accountability for Harding? 70th or worse in TFLs allowed every year. Every year, the offensive line is the Achilles heel.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You might be asking some serious questions this morning of Jim Harding. That's tough. He also says Utah stopped passing the ball after there was a turnover. Kyle took over the offensive play calling, which is never good. Daryl Adams says Arizona has improved. It's obvious. BYU didn't use all of their games week one. Well, and I think that was the other thing that we saw. We saw a whole lot of fresh inventory in that BYU playbook this week.
It's just impressive. Like, dude, I don't mean to sit
the
here.
Whole thing, yeah.
I don't mean to sit here and drink the blue Kool-Aid, but I can't help myself. Like,
you're not drinking the blue Kool-Aid.
Listen,
you're chugging it.
Yeah, dude.
You're doing that whole thing where you just vacuum swallow a whole.
Dude, like the whole thing. Right? Like,
wait, did you just do?
Yes, I did. That was perfect technique. If you missed it, I'm not going to give you instant replay. Okay. It is what it is. Anyway, point is that the whole thing to me is just impressive. Like I legitimately thought, all right, Monday we're going to come in. I'm going to wake up at the crack of dawn. And I'm going to have to get a bunch of people in the comments who are Utah fans saying that it's little brother TDS. Honestly. I was like, damn, it's going to be 10 years in a row, and, we're going to have to listen to Utah fan, be relentless as usual, and it's so nice not to have to hear that, but now to have a conversation about who's the better team in the state. I think that is so much better for college football. I think that is so much better for the state of sports in the state in the actual state of Utah. Like, I just think it's better for everything that BYU found a way to win this particular year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Casey, good morning, too. He says, but that's the thing, Monty. BYU didn't play prevent 90% of the game versus Utah. They made a huge difference by getting pressure. Well, prevent is almost always about your secondary, the top of your secondary. And I think there's no doubt, we were talking about it during the game, BYU safeties were deep. They had depth. They kept everything in front of them.
Which I don't think was a problem.
No, no, it wasn't. But because you had so much pressure up front, you were able to, do a few more things. Charlie Brewer didn't have time to stand back there. It's shocking the level of depth that the Utah receivers were playing at. I mean, they were not playing 20-yard routes. They were not running 20. Their route trees were very, very shallow, which was really surprising.
Yeah.
Really surprising. Ramiro says, I agree. BYU was always seen as a P5, but Utah never did, and neither did BYU in this series. Utah had a psychological advantage over them. I agree with that. I would agree with that. Daryl Adams says Utah doesn't want someone to go to when resting their number one back. Oh, they don't have someone. Well,
I would agree with that, yeah.
But I don't know that I would agree with that. I think the problem is that Tavion Thomas turned the ball over. You fumbled. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And Witt's not going to keep you in the game if you're going to continue to turn the ball over. I think, look, Micah Bernard's a hell of a running back. He clearly has won the number one spot. Tavion Thomas will be heard from again. There's no doubt about that. He's a legit back. He's got to stop turning the football over, period. How about that? Colin says, let's go Jacksonville State. How about them? Don't even. Yeah, we'll talk about that game tomorrow. Cougar secondary has improved its athleticism and depth enough to unleash blitz packages and pressure opposing offensive. Well, and I think that's one of the things we did not see in the Arizona game was the disguise in the blitzing, which I thought, I agree, was really impressive. Couple more. Alex T says people had pictures of him mocking him for addiction. Yes, they did on T-shirts.
Yeah.
Not funny. Brad Buffton says all it does is prove Max right. Derek Harris says they hugged it out after. Alex T says look up Todd Noel on Twitter. Okay. Mind Axiom. Okay. Says the way BYU recruits big, raw athletes and develops them into studs is working. Kalani has a formula that's starting to work now that he's had some time. Well, I think we've all seen that, and we joked about this the other day on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, BMI, your body mass index, is important when you're going to go play at BYU. Like, they want beef.
Yeah,
they want guys, and Kalani and his staff believe that they can turn guys into defensive linemen. And I agree with that. They've done that. They've absolutely done that. I think it is.
Hey, by the way, that sounds like a good fit when you're playing in the Big 12, doesn't it?
That would be important.
Big Midwestern boys.
Yeah. Casey Finlinson says, between Max Hall's comments, Urban and the urinal cakes, and yes, Tanner Plummer, the Huntley comments drives fans into doing stupid things.
Well,
certainly fuels it. Spencer Jones says BYU, BYU, BYU.
Yeah.
Okay. Tavita says the best catch of the night was by Coach Kalani. Yeah, how about that running catch on the sideline? He got
Old man still got it.
It was amazing. Jeremy Bolton says, I don't think A-Rod is getting enough credit either. Duke called a genius offensive game. Well, I mean, I would agree. Some of the play calling early in this game was frustrating.
Yeah.
And I would agree in the second half, they opened things up a little bit more, which I think they needed to.
This is who this team is, though. If we think about it, we saw the same thing versus Arizona. What did we see versus Arizona? Right? Now, again, everyone said, oh, well, that's week one, kind of just some rust, like working through some things. But now if we're going to start to see this consistently, I'm starting to see a pattern develop. We can't call it a pattern yet, but just starting to see some trends developing here, which is we're going to be a little conservative early. We're going to establish the run. We're going to see, can our offensive line hold up against, the opponent's defensive line? Like, again, Arizona State this coming week. Can BYU's offensive line, create gaps against that defensive line? That's what they're trying to figure out early in the game.
Yeah,
and then I think what we saw against both Arizona and Utah was that based on what they saw in the running game early, now that's going to dictate how aggressive in free firing we're going to let Jaren be. If we need more out of him, if we need him to run a little bit to kind of break the defense down, to get those linebackers to push back a little bit so we can run a little bit more, we're going to see that. Now, if we're running the ball effectively, if the A gap is open and we're one-on-one with the linebacker, we're going to take that because we got a stud running back, So I think the trend is let's see what we can do early in the running game, and based on that, then let's get Jaren going. Because, again, I'll maintain, happened in both games. At Arizona, Jaren was nothing in the first quarter. Second quarter, what happens? Makes that beautiful throw to the right sideline, and all of a sudden, what do we see? Jaren's throwing the ball all over the field, right? Everything's great. He's right into the game. What do we see against Utah? Hey, we're going to run it early. We're going to see what we can get done. We weren't really getting too much there. All right, let's get Jaren a pass. Woke him up, and all of a sudden, we're cooking. So I'm just telling you, watch out for that trend as this season wears on.
It's amazing how many Ute fans are like, well, BYU, they're not better than we are. Well, I got news for you. Yeah, they are. They're better. I mean, seriously, they're better. I don't know how
They're
you...
Utah fan.
What is the argument? How do you make an argument that BYU is not better?
You're not ranked higher. They just beat you 1-on-1. They're 2-0. You're 1-1. What's to talk about?
And as annoying as BYU fan can be, and I agree that BYU fan can be...
That's assuming they make it past the net when they're running onto the field.
Oh, my God. How about that?
That was amazing, dude.
Go around. No, but I think all fans in BYU fan position this morning, you have the right to be precocious.
Big word.
But Utah fan is just unbearable. I mean, it is, you are an a-hole. I mean, there's no... Like, Utah fan doesn't care about Max Hall's addiction, or, Utah fans never going to, give credit where credit's due. Never. Ever.
Yeah.
And you're unbearable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I think it's healthy for the rivalry. This needed to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
Because now... BYU is going to talk a bunch of junk for 2 years, and when we play again, now that game's going to be even more hyped.
Although I agree with you, the field goal in that was...
hilarious. Best defensive line on the field, dude. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah. Spencer Morgan says the quality of line play by BYU after losing Grimes and the guys that they did, pretty impressive. True. Jeremy Bolton said Witt even alluded to that in his postgame. He was even surprised that BYU's line dominated the whole game. I think Witt was very stoic. I almost feel like Utah anticipated this. They're never going to say that or even get near it.
No.
You feel like Utah knew this was the year.
Winter was coming.
Yeah, right? I mean, pull out the wool sweaters, kids, because it's going to be a cold one.
Yeah.
And you almost feel like that. Spencer says, yes, totally agree with the A-Rod comment. So glad to see him getting this win because he was scapegoated by Utah and did not deserve to be fired. Well,
but see, I think this is fascinating. This rivalry for years now, right? This is nothing new, but I think it's just something that underlines the whole thing. You have multiple huge names that have been in both programs, and I think to me, it just and it obviously Kalani's the face of that conversation, but I just feel like it just is this awesome dynamic, and I'm telling you, this is part of the reason BYU is successful in this game.
Yeah.
Kalani knows Witt.
Yeah.
Kalani knows this program. Kalani knows what Witt teaches.
they're intimately familiar with each other. But let's be honest, as an offensive coordinator, why do you go to Utah? To get fired. They change offensive coordinators like we all change
It's
our
not
underwear.
an offensive school. It never has been and never will be.
Well, and I think that's why this season is so critical for the Utes. I mean, you finally have a dynamic quarterback, but now it doesn't feel like you have dynamic weapons outside. I mean, this is a turning point. You got exposed by BYU, and now you got to go to San Diego State, which is not an easy place to play football. It is not. And it'll be interesting to see how Utah reacts. It really is. Jeremy Bolton says, Jake, LOL, so funny watching the students get owned by that field goal net.
It was hilarious. It was. I was just sitting there thinking to myself, this is classic. You're so drunk on the fact that you just won this game that
Jake,
you thought that you could just run through
drinking
it. Oh, my bad. My bad.
BYU.
You were so hydrated from all the water you drank that you thought you were strong enough to run through a kicking net. That to me was one of the best moments post game.
Yeah, and Stan wants to know how many honor code violations were committed in the dorms.
See, like, that's a good joke. I can get down with that. That's funny.
That is funny.
That's funny.
I like that. I hope a ton. I do.
That's funny.
I hope. Yeah, anyway. Gavin Vega, it sounds like Utah, knowing it's been so long since the Cougs won, knew that they were going to get punched in the mouth. And honestly, if they win out, it'll be a good game for both teams to learn from.
Well, now they better win out. That's the truth.
I don't know how you fix the offensive line at Utah. It's bad. It's really bad. I really don't know. I don't know. And this is one of, yeah, we'll see. Anyway, how do you gave up 100 yards rushing to BYU?
It's not good.
I mean, there's not a whole lot.
Bro, 100 yards rushing? You gave up 95 to Jaren on his own.
Yeah, I don't know.
Bro, like, that's not good.
I don't know.
That's a problem.